In a recent video, I went over the Rotten Tomatoes ratings of all the Alien and Predator movies, and there was one specific rating that really stood out. Predator 2, the 1990 sequel to Predator, currently stands at a 29% Rotten rating. I got many comments pointing this out. People seemed to be surprised that Predator 2 would have such a low rating. It seemed undeserving, inaccurate to the quality of the film. Because that really is a significantly low rating that indicates a very, very bad movie. Maybe not so fair when assigned to Predator 2. If it got 50%, 40% even, somewhere around there, maybe I could understand, but 29%? Is Predator 2 really that bad? Or is it underrated? Is it actually really good? Surely and fairly enough, it can't compare with the original Predator, released in 1987. It was an instant classic, starring the biggest action star of the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, with all the cheesy one-liners you could hope for.
Yeah. Stick around.
It was also compelling science fiction, featuring the unique concept of the alien hunter, and with that concept came groundbreaking special effects. Joel Hynek, Robert M. Greenberg, Richard Greenberg, and Stan Winston were all nominated for the Academy Award for Best Special Effects for their work here. It was one of the biggest box office hits of the year. Box Office Mojo has it ranked at number 10 in 1987's top-grossing films. And its own Rotten Tomatoes score is very healthy, at 81% certified fresh. Predator was undoubtedly a tough act to follow, but in a post-1987 world, there was an interest in Predator as a franchise, and there was demand for more. Not just on the basis of the movie, but the Dark Horse comics, produced in 1989, proved to be very popular as well. This was the Concrete Jungle storyline, the story of Dutch Schaefer's brother, a New York City detective who also encounters the predator species as he navigates through gang wars and mysterious murders in a similar way to what we would see in Predator 2. But the success of the comics showed that there could be more stories to tell using this concept of an alien hunter, and a different location other than the jungle could be interesting. It also meant stories like this could be done without the star of the original movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which seemed to be the route they'd have to take, since very early on in pre-production it seemed like Arnold would not be available. He was committed to filming another sequel at the time, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, and those James Cameron productions take up a lot of time. Director John McTiernan also would not return. A year after directing Predator, McTiernan directed Die Hard, which was a huge success, and of course after that he was deemed too expensive for Predator 2. Instead, they hunted some young blood in finding director Stephen Hopkins, whose only American feature film prior to this was A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. A much smaller budgeted film, but with an engaging visual style which seemed to impress producer Joel Silver enough to offer him Predator 2. A lot of the key talent did return for the sequel, though. Producer Joel Silver, Stan Winston Studios were back for the Predator effects. Actor Kevin Peter Hall, the man behind the Predator, returned to play the new Predator for this film. Alan Silvestri, whose soundtrack for the original Predator was fantastic and exciting and really memorable, also returned to do the music for Predator 2. Writers Jim and John Thomas returned to write the screenplay for the sequel, which I think is important. They came up with a winning concept, they were very closely involved with the making of the first film, so absolutely we would want to see what they would bring to the table with this sequel. In this quote from their DVD audio commentary, Jim and John Thomas explain how the concept of Predator 2 developed, and the new environment they wanted to explore for this new story. We didn't start working on the sequel until after the comic book was a success, and Joel was the one who convinced the studio that we should do the sequel. Our first efforts were to get a script for Arnold, so we worked out some storyline primarily working with the idea that Arnold would come back to reprise his role. But when it fell out then, we had to reinvent the idea of the Predator coming down having nothing to do with the original cast, but just that he liked to hunt and had been coming here a long time. We wanted to do it just slightly in the future, to play with the idea of what the environment might be like, a little bit of change in automobiles, subcultures, things like that. But we didn't want to push it too far into the future, so it was a little difficult to stay present but also push the envelope just a bit, and playing with the idea that there was this global warming that was a little out of control. Everybody's carrying water bottles and complaining about the heat all the time. In this version of Los Angeles, all the hookers are licensed, and all the street hoods are developing very colorful personalities. In the urban environment, the police always represented the specialists, the highly trained people who do work that nobody else can do. Whereas the first one, the combat soldiers, were an elite special forces rescue team, very highly trained and had their own sense of motivation in doing their job. So there were correlations between the two that we tried to maintain, but it's a different era, where the urban environment in Predator 2 is in the midst of kind of a social breakdown. And the police were sort of the last vestige of civilization, if you will, that came up against something that's completely uncivilized in our aspect, but that's civilized in their own way. Sort of a noble hunter, though we probably wouldn't look at it like that. But truly in both cases, people who think that they've seen everything, then all of a sudden they're confronting something that's just beyond their imagination.
A fucking alien.
The face of this new environment is a new character, Lieutenant Harrigan, the veteran, seen-it-all cop who plays by his own rules and puts his ass on the line. He's played by Danny Glover, and much like with the Dutch character played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the alien begins by observing Lieutenant Harrigan. It follows his actions and those who surround him, finally determining he is the ultimate prize, the most worthy trophy for his collection. In each film, supporting characters are killed off along the way, as the human character slowly begins to realize what he's dealing with, and most importantly, figuring out a way to kill it before it can kill him. It's hunter versus hunted, and only the best can survive. Both Predator and Predator 2 feature final showdowns where the Predator is outwitted and defeated by its prey. So while the environment of Predator 2 is entirely different, it does go through some familiar territory. Very general points are followed. It's definitely distinct enough in its own ways, but in lieu of having returning characters or a continuing story, there's at least a thematic continuity between the two. While superstar Arnold Schwarzenegger may not have returned, the new cast brought on for this sequel is very impressive. Danny Glover as Lieutenant Mike Harrigan, his teammates, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, and Bill Paxton are all great to see in supporting roles. There's also Gary Busey and Adam Baldwin in roles that involve a new plotline, not explored in the previous film. They're part of the task force hunting down the otherworld life forms, and they're keeping a close eye on both the Predator and Harrigan as the hunt develops. This is another similarity to the Concrete Jungle storyline from the comics, though in the comics it's the military tracking down extraterrestrial activity after the events of the first film. The operation is overseen by General Phillips, the same general who sent Arnold and the gang on their doomed rescue mission. I like the angle with General Phillips, but I think the movie went in the right direction with Gary Busey. His character, Peter Keyes, may actually be the best thing about the movie, at least next to the Predator itself. They have a lot of fun with the Predator and all its surrounding effects in this movie. It's presented as younger, more flamboyant, and rebellious. Kevin Peter Hall plays it very differently this time around, and there are great subtleties to his performance. There's plenty of new weapons too, which was something the comic was lacking. This new Predator has a spear for close combat, a net gun to quickly catch its prey, and probably the most fun of these new weapons, the disc. It's used only once and is shown briefly in just this one movie in this series, but its terrifying memory lives on for anyone who's ever played Alien vs. Predator online. There's new vision modes as well. Keyes' team thinks they know all they need to know about the Predator and believe they can blind it, mask their body heat, and capture it, but it's able to change its vision mode and swiftly massacre this task force. And of course in this sequel we finally get to see inside the Predator's ship, and inside we get to see multiple members of this species. While it was only very briefly at the end, it was still cool to see, and it was also cool to see the trophy wall. This displayed the skulls from all different kinds of species, but the most noticeable is the xenomorph skull. While this was just meant to be a visual gag, it generated a lot of curiosity about an Alien vs. Predator crossover film, which eventually did come to be. The special effects are really good, equal to, if not better, than the original movie. The cloaking and heat vision effects are worked in a lot more this time around. There's more effects, and they're more complicated, all accomplished in a time before CGI. The ground had already been broken with the first, so Predator 2 in a city setting had a lot of different ways to use these special effects and come up with different backgrounds for the Predator to blend into. These effects are shown off in interesting ways, and it never feels repetitive. One of the best moments of the film has to be the Predator's showdown with King Willie in the alleyway. It's a well-put-together scene that shows the entrance of the alien cloaked and invisible and revealing itself in the reflection of a puddle. While the story follows similar beats, the environment allows for so much more to do with the camera and visually tell this story in a completely different way. So Predator 2 is different enough to not be considered a rehash, most definitely, and it follows enough of the formula that it delivers on what an audience may expect to see in a Predator movie. Maybe this all doesn't amount to a sequel that outdoes the original and blows it away or anything, but it doesn't necessarily amount to a bad movie either. Maybe the biggest problem of the movie, and most repeated criticism, is that it just wasn't as good as the original. I have to admit, when I first saw it, I didn't like it that much, and that's kind of how I felt. Back in the late 90s, I watched it on tape, the 20th Century Fox Selections collection of VHS releases, a selected series of films available at a special value for a limited time. I'd seen all the Alien films plenty of times, and was set on seeing the 2 Predator movies. I watched Predator 2 almost immediately after watching the first one, which I loved, and that first viewing of the sequel, I definitely felt disappointment. I was disappointed that they couldn't get Arnold for the sequel, sure, because there was a lot more that could have been done with that character. I felt, and still feel to a degree, that it was an unfortunately missed opportunity not to explore the character further. I felt Danny Glover wasn't as good of a match to put up against the Predator as Schwarzenegger was, and felt the constant need to compare the two. I thought at the time that it was kind of a rehash, the same old thing with different characters and location. The hero is hunted by the invisible alien, there's a showdown between the two, the hero wins, lives to fight another day. I felt I've seen it all before with the first film. I even thought the design of the Predator was inferior compared to the first. I much prefer the design both in the costume as a whole and in the unmasked stage of the original. More menacing, more organic, and generally cooler looking, in my opinion. I think this second Predator looks somehow less convincing. On the whole, Predator 2 just didn't thrill me or engage me in the same kind of way that the original did, and for that, I guess, I felt it wasn't a good movie. But I never felt any kind of hate towards it. I didn't feel it was insultingly bad or a disgrace to the original or anything like that. I just sort of felt indifferent to it. So I was open to watch it again, and I've revisited it many times since then, and every time I watch it, I like it a little more. Maybe it's just the kind of movie that needs some time to warm to. I watched it a lot more when it came to DVD, specifically in 2004 when they released a pretty nifty special edition, which was great to see. Around that time, the Alien Quadrilogy was already released with a slew of special features. There was the original Predator with a special edition that was pretty packed with bonus content as well, so the fact that Predator 2 also got that treatment was a real good thing to see. It felt like part of the club. The special edition included many extras that provided some nice insight into making the movie, special effects reels, stunt showcases, 2 different commentaries, one with the Thomas brothers as previously quoted, and one with director Stephen Hopkins, and a behind-the-scenes documentary incorporating both new and vintage interviews. Lots and lots to enjoy if you're a fan of the film, lots of peeks behind the scenes, and anything featuring Gary Busey is just pure gold.
I guess you're wondering what we're doing here in these barbecue outfits. Well, it's easy. We're going in after another world life force from another galaxy that has a self-defense mechanism that we don't understand. It's intangible to this time and space. It's actually from the theory of relativity and from the theory of quantum mechanics. Take those properties and equalize them, and you have the quantum theory of gravity, which is a discussion of how this universe started and how it will end. The Predator knows that information already. It is our job and our objective to go capture the Predator, sit him down, have a talk with him, find out why he does what he does, how he does what he does, and where he gets the weaponry and the defense mechanisms he uses in order to obtain his goal. And that is our goal. If we don't achieve that goal, we will be turned into vapor clouds made of small pink particles known on Earth as blood.
The behind-the-scenes stuff is really entertaining and illuminating. It seemed altogether to be a fairly lighthearted production and that everyone got along. Not like something such as, say, Alien 3, where there were script problems, clashes between the director and studio, major cuts being made, reshoots, and general chaos seemingly plaguing the entire production. Nothing at all like that. I get the impression everyone involved with Predator 2 got along just fine in putting the movie together. Maybe there were certain concepts here and there, certain things they wanted to do with the Predator and the action scenes that just couldn't be accomplished due to effects or budget limitations at the time, but for the most part, it looks like they made the movie pretty much how they intended to, going in. It's just that the movie made, the final product, didn't garner the desired reaction. It performed decently at the box office, considering this was a November release instead of a summer movie like the previous Predator, though it could hardly be called a smash hit. And critics at the time were dumping all over it. I guess they continue to do so to this day. On Rotten Tomatoes, the score of 29% is based on 28 reviews, which is comparatively tiny, especially if you consider it against the more recently released The Predator from 2018, which has a score of 32% based on 276 reviews. Much more data to work with, and it's much different today. There are a lot more critics out there, and one of my first thoughts in seeing Predator 2's score on Rotten Tomatoes was maybe these are all reviews from 1990. Maybe altogether it has little indication of how the critical reaction has been in the years to follow. I'd be wrong in that, though. That's not really the case. As meager as this collection of reviews is, it covers criticism sprawling from 1990 to as recently as last year. And still, the bad reviews outweigh the good. But I can't help but feel this collection is incomplete. If you look closer at the ratings from critics, you'll see some don't even come with blurbs or links to the original reviews, so I guess we have to take their word for it. And who really knows why certain publications are tomato meter approved or not? However they've collected these reviews, I can't help but think it's somewhat incomplete. The back of the VHS has a quote from The Hollywood Reporter. "You'll barely have time to catch your breath. Mind-blowing stunts. Packs a wallop." Where's that review on Rotten Tomatoes? The special edition DVD also has a blurb, this one from Daily Variety. "Relentlessly paced, extremely entertaining." Where's that review on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't quite think we get the overall accurate or definitive critical consensus, and with the only 28 reviews determining it, I can't say Rotten Tomatoes is all that reliable. Not that it should ever be considered fully reliable, mind you, but usually at least gives some close idea to the majority's opinion on a movie. In this case, maybe the audience score it garners on the site is at least a little more promising. The audience score is based on about 139,000 votes from users, and while it still doesn't amount to that good of a score, 44% from the audience, it might just be a little bit more fair. Not a good rating, but not something that indicates an absolutely horrendous movie either, which 29% does. But no matter where you go to find a collective rating for Predator 2, it never seems to get over that hump into a positive rating. Metacritic has it ranked with a 46 out of 100 based on 18 reviews from critics, but with a decent user score of 7.2 based on 65 ratings. Letterboxd gives it a 2.8 stars out of 5 rating based on 21,000 ratings from users. And good old IMDb has collected 38,000 user ratings, resulting in an overall score of 6.3 out of 10. Actually not too bad of a rating, all things considered. Maybe IMDb is the one place where things are actually sorted out properly. Compare IMDb's scores to Rotten Tomatoes scores, and they're actually pretty closely aligned except for Predator 2. The first Predator with 7.8 on IMDb compared to 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. Predators with a 6.4 on IMDb compared to 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Predator with 5.4 against 32%, close enough. But the biggest discrepancy is Predator 2, very noticeable in comparing a 6.3 IMDb rating to the 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. So clearly, in a situation where The Predator still actually has a higher score than Predator 2, something has got to be up. Even considering its score against the 2010 film Predators on IMDb, they're very close in ratings, but worlds apart on Rotten Tomatoes, so that could be a point of contention as well. In fact, I recently held polls on the Alien Theory social media pages, and I asked which was better, Predator 2 or Predators. On Twitter, with 495 votes, Predator 2 came through overwhelmingly with 71.1% of the votes. And on Facebook, based on 1.1 thousand votes, Predator 2 was once again the preferred sequel, gaining 72% of the votes. So, based at least on votes from those kind enough to follow me on social media, Predator 2 is the preferred sequel over Predators. Maybe their respective ratings on these sites don't accurately reflect how fans feel about the films. Maybe the 1990 sequel just hasn't gotten a fair shake. Predator 2 may not have seen the return of the hero character in Schwarzenegger, but we do get to see the return of one of the most compelling and unique science fiction villains, the Predator. They add more weapons, more of a variety in the arsenal for all the action scenes, which is great, but so many more details are added that give us a better understanding of the Predator as well, which I think is important. The alien hunter's code of honor goes beyond just not killing the unarmed, because it lacks sport, as we learn in the first film. Arnold makes this abundantly clear in a line of dialogue explaining exactly that way.
Don't! Leave him! He didn't kill you because you weren't armed. No sport.
In Predator 2, we learn the Predator has the ability to detect and determine if what it's seeing in its vision is just a child holding a toy gun and not a real threat. We also learn it can see if a woman is pregnant, as shown with the Leona character, so when it doesn't kill her, we can gather it's because it didn't deem it honorable to kill the unborn baby, even though he viewed Leona as a threat and as part of an overall plan to entice Harrigan. This is a much more psychological hunt going on. The Predator specifically targets victims who are close to Harrigan or who are involved in his world in some way. It also leaves clues for him to find, as if to taunt him, so it feels a lot more like this cat-and-mouse game that they're playing, as opposed to it finding an elite rescue team in the jungle and picking them off one by one. But in the same way that the original took a military action Schwarzenegger movie and blended it with sci-fi horror, Commando meets Alien, Predator 2 did the same with the police action thriller genre and has many elements of that, so it was Lethal Weapon meets Alien, and I appreciate that angle. And I think it's all the more inspired casting to bring in Danny Glover and Gary Busey, who both starred in Lethal Weapon, and they're absolutely great in this movie. Danny Glover gives a really committed performance, playing it as seriously as he would any other role, and I think he's really convincing as the Harrigan character slowly begins to realize he's dealing with something extraordinary and literally out of this world as the genre practically shifts beneath his feet. Gary Busey is absolutely wonderful. The Keyes character provides for something we didn't necessarily get in the first movie, a human antagonist that the hero has to overcome in addition to the Predator. I thought the adversarial relationship between Harrigan and Keyes is well played out, and I love every scene they have together. They play off each other in a very interesting way. Each very territorial and willing to butt heads, but also with a cautious respect for each other. Enough respect, obviously, that Keyes wouldn't think twice about trying to save Harrigan when the capture operation goes awry. Despite his unfortunate fate at the hands of the Predator, he's presented as something more than just a generic villain. We understand his plight to an extent, and we understand the underlying respect he has for the Harrigan character despite their conflict. I love the character, I thought it was a great addition, and I love the performance by Busey. And how could you not love Bill Paxton in this movie? He's the MVP of Predator 2. His performance is a joy to watch. He's Detective Jerry Lambert, the new guy, nicknamed the Lone Ranger, a cocky rebel with a big ego and a habit of getting his partners killed in the past. He's always prepared with a smug remark or a bad joke and oozes with a sleazy but undeniable charm. Paxton has a lot of fun with the role and makes it all the more fun for the audience. And of course, this is the record-breaking film for Paxton. This is the moment he joined a special club and became a legend. 1984, he plays the street punk, killed by a Terminator. 1986, Private Hudson, the ultimate badass, killed in a blaze of glory fighting off xenomorphs. And in 1990, he faces off against and is killed by a Predator. So with Predator 2, Bill Paxton planted the flag of being the first actor to play roles where he's killed by a Terminator, Alien, and a Predator. Quite the feat. And all the better that with his character's fate in this movie, he's taken out in a heroic fashion. He gets his new partner out of harm's way, redeeming himself for his past mistakes. He clears out the entire subway car and gives them time to escape as he bravely tries to take down the alien hunter. Who can say how many street punks he saved that day? I think Stephen Hopkins was the right choice for director on this one. I'm also a fan of his work on A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and he brings a similar and fitting style to Predator 2. It has standout, elaborate visuals that have a very comic booky feel, but at the same time he brings the grit, the hard edges, and almost guerrilla style of filmmaking that is very much in line with the feel of the first movie. What Hopkins pulled off with such a tight budget and shooting schedule is truly something worth commending. It's altogether a good-looking movie with exciting action scenes featuring amazing stunt work, special effects that hold up great after all these years, and I think it is very much a worthy follow-up to the original. It is now the year 2020, and Predator 2 will officially be 30 years old. I think it's something to celebrate. I think Predator 2 is a sequel to be embraced, not tucked away or forgotten. So, if you haven't seen it in a while, the 30th anniversary may be the perfect opportunity to revisit it, reevaluate it, see if your appreciation grows. Rotten Tomatoes is fun to browse through. It's nice to see different ratings and different opinions, but the ultimate determination of whether Predator 2 is good or bad is up to you. I've made my own case. I've had my own experiences with the movie. I used to not like it too much, but grew to enjoy it on watching it again, and yes, personally, I feel Predator 2 is an underrated movie. I think it's really good, actually, and I think it deserves more love. But that's just me. I'd very much like to know your opinion in the comments below. Is Predator 2 underrated, or does it fully deserve a rotten score? Let me know what you think. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like. And you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI executives EmYarUk, Mark Fox, and Lady Ann. And our Queen, Albert Newell, all part of the Patreon Hive. Thank you all so much in the Hive for your support on the channel, and if you'd like to join the Hive and support it yourself, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.